Hi, everybody. This is Melanie David with the LPM podcast. And today we're sitting down with State Senator Rick Edmonds, a Republican from Baton Rouge who spent the last decade in Louisiana legislature, first in the House, and now he's in the Senate, where he represents parts of East Baton Rouge, Livingston, and St. Helena parishes. So you recently announced he's running for Congress in Louisiana's newly redrawn 5th Congressional District. It's a seat currently held by Julia Letlow, who is stepping down to run for the U.S. Senate. The 5th District now stretches from parts of Baton Rouge metro area through the Florida parishes and all the way north to Bastrop, correct?
Yes, all the way to past Monroe.
So it's a lot of area. It covers like a lot of fast-growing suburbs, rural communities, and a lot of the agricultural sort of heart of the state, right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us, of course. So let's start with a little background for listeners who might not know that much about you yet. You are a pastor, Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
I'm Southern Baptist as well. And you're a former state representative and now state senator, as we mentioned. So how does your faith in your career in the ministry shape the way you have approached public service?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me. And you're right. My family and my faith shape everything for me. Cindy and I have been married for 52 years, just about a week ago, and we were childhood sweethearts. We were married as teenagers. We've got 4 sons and 4 daughter-in-laws, 8 grandchildren. I've been in the ministry since I was 18 years old, so that faith and family it's just the core for me. So it's guided my life, my whole adult life. We've been blessed, and we still are so blessed in love. And as a kid growing up, I was an only child, and my parents raised me with great ideas and concepts, and gave me great confidence that in America, you could just do anything and be anything. And I just believed them. They poured into me, and my mother was probably I couldn't have had a better teacher than my mother. She was not a teacher, but at home it was vocabulary at night after sports and reading assignments and doing my math facts. And so that's the household I grew up in, and it just shaped everything. God and country was just always just a part of who we are.
Right. So I have read some background information. I found this very interesting, that your father was a factory worker who started his own small business.
Yeah, own small business.
The Louisiana Fence Company.
Yeah.
So how did watching your parents build this business from the ground up influence your politics and your priorities?
Yeah, well, my dad was just amazing, hard-working man. If you'd have met him, his hands were like bricks. They were just stone. I mean, I hear some good country songs about those kind of fathers and grandfathers. Well, that was my dad. He grew up in a little town called Plain Dealing, Louisiana, almost on the Louisiana-Arkansas border. Actually, one of his best friends in high school was my father-in-law, J.B. Harville. They both went to Plain Dealing High School. And J.B. went on to Louisiana Tech to get his education degrees, and my dad came to work in the factory. Libby Owens Ford Glass Company at that time made plate glass windows for automobiles, and my dad made the shipping crates. So he had a hammer in his hand and nails, and there wasn't any nail guns or any of that. I mean, he grew up with a hammer in his hand, making those and shipping those windows all over America. Well, in about 58, he started his own business called Louisiana Fence Company, and it was chain link and wood and commercial and all that. Just started just like anybody does in Louisiana or in most America. It's just a small business. My mom did the books. So I remember growing up as a kid, I learned how to answer the phone. I never forgot the number, 318-631-1870. I never forgot it because I'd answer the phone and say, they'd say, well, where's Mr. Edmonds? And I'd say, well, I'm 8 years old. Mr. Edmonds is out, and he's putting a fence up, but he'll call you back. And I'd take their notes and whatnot. And Melanie, I watched that growing up, and that's all we knew was to work hard and we had to be motivated to do it because I remember sitting at the dinner table and Dad saying, gosh, I got to go to the bank tomorrow, and I'm going to have to borrow some money. We're not going to make it. And at that time, that $25,000 loan at the First National Bank was, if we don't get that loan, we're in trouble. And so that shaped everything for me about understanding small business and how day to day people, they live on a thread sometimes. And we have a lot of people in Louisiana that need people that understand the principles of small business and large business and how it really works. So it's been a great asset in the legislature. I've been on appropriations for 8 years in the House, and now I'm on finance and chair the state's education committee. So when I deal with the business community in all of Louisiana, or the farmers, or all of those, I understand when they say we're going to lose our farm if we don't get this act passed. We're going to lose our farm, and they're legacy farmers. Or I understand when a businessman comes and says, if we're not able to get this thing changed and help us get this done, we're not going to make it. So it's really been a great marriage of growing up like that and then becoming a legislator and really understanding what really happens in small business.
So you've been in the legislature, like you're talking about, for about a decade, and you've chaired the Senate Education Committee,
Right.
and you've been on finance and criminal justice. So if you had to point to one accomplishment that you're most proud of from your time in the legislature, what would that be?
Gosh, man, that's a tough one. I've almost every year carried an adoption bill. And I did that because when I was on the campaign trail 11 years ago, I met a family that felt like that they had been cheated out of a child that they were going to adopt. I didn't realize that we had some laws in codes that really needed some adjustment. And I knocked on the door. And when I knocked on the door, here I am handing my card out and trying to get elected. And I knock on the door, the guy opens the door and he says, "You're Rick Edmonds." And I went, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, I've been waiting for you." And I said, "Well, yes, sir." And he said, "Would you like to come in and sit down?" And I said, "Sure." And I came in and sat down, and around the corner came his little 4-year-old little daughter he had adopted. Well, long story, but what occurred is they were going to adopt the little brother. And because of some codes and things that allowed people to sort of cheat them, they felt cheated that they did not and were not able to adopt that biological brother. And they were heartbroken. And so I started for that year in 2015 and then 16 to follow. I immediately started working, and every year I worked on, almost every year, an adoption bill to try to make certain that families in Louisiana could have the best coverage they could to adopt a child. Adoption's a great option, for babies. I'm a pro-life guy, so it's a great adoption, and we've worked hard on that. I could say some other things, but you asked me quickly, and that one pops to my mind that's been a life-changing for many families over the state of Louisiana, and we still got some work to do, but I'm really proud of the work that we've done in that area.
So let's get into the 5th district, and we talked about how it's been redrawn, and it's parts of Livingston, which of course is our backyard. So what do you want voters in this area to know about you and why you are the right person for this seat?
Well, it starts in about Ascension Parish, and then you pull up in EBR, and then you get Livingston, Tangipahoa, and it goes all the way to Monroe to Bastrop. And so it's a very large geographical district. And let me just tell you some things that are very important, I think, that they need to know. First of all, you got to have a fighter, somebody that's willing to make certain that they're not throwing grenades into the room to blow up the issue, but I'm a guy that gets it done. And I believe that if you look at my record over the past almost 11 years, you'll see that when it came to infrastructure, I'm so thankful that I've been involved with infrastructure. Let me just give you an example. We had the Garvey bonds come up just about, 8 years ago. Well, I was able to help lead and champion. We got $450 million for our infrastructure that now you see a lot that's being done in I-10 restructure, and now we're moving to I-12. So I hear people say, well, I-12 is a dangerous road, and we've got to make certain we get there. Well, I've had that experience. I'm probably the only one in this race. I think I am the only one in this race that's fought that hard for infrastructure needs. So I-12 is going to be next on my list to make certain that we work with DOTD, but we also work with the federal Highway Management Association that gets those dollars directed towards something like I-12 in Livingston Parish. It's vital, and I'll get the job done. But let me also tell you, I'm on the Comite River diversion. In 2016, we had people in Livingston Parish that lost everything. Churches, businesses. I sat there with them, helped clean their houses out, brought thousands of meals to them. I stood on their doorsteps and stood at the street when we couldn't even get in the house and prayed with them and cried with them. 2016 was a 1,000-year flood and a devastating one. Well, you've got to have somebody that understands that what we have to do is make certain that the monies that we need to get back for restructuring, the dollars that we need from the federal government, We can't have people against those kind of things. And we have some of that going on. I'm sad to tell you. But so you're going to have a fighter that makes certain that we get our dollars. I'd also add what happens with our farmers. If we don't have the Farm Act and things that occur for our farmers all through the central core of Louisiana, those farmers they're going under. And I am that guy that if you give me the opportunity to get to Washington, I'll find the results, the solutions, and get the job done. How do you know that? How do the people of this district know that? Because that's exactly what they know in Livingston Parish right now. The dollars that they've needed, the help that they needed, the solutions they needed, I've been able to quarterback a lot of that in this particular area, and I will champion those causes for Livingston Parish.
Okay. So you covered the next question I was going to ask you about your approach to fighting for infrastructure funding. So we'll go ahead and get into one of the more controversial issues in Livingston Parish right now, which is carbon capture. So Louisiana came out the gate and sort of positioned itself as a major player in this economy, you know, where have the Pelican Sequestration Hub project, for example. And some argue it's a job creator and an economic lifeline, and others say, well, the long-term risks aren't worth it, or we don't really understand them. So Governor Landry has put a moratorium on some of the permitting earlier this year. So where do you stand on carbon capture as an energy policy, and how do you balance the economic opportunity against the concerns of landowners and communities have raised about pipelines running under their property?
Yeah, very difficult and complex issue here. So let's start with this. Let me just say thanks to President Trump for making certain that the energy community was devastated by many of the executive orders that were placed in by the Obama, but in particular by the Biden administration. One of the first things that the president did was to reopen the energy corridor for the state of Louisiana, which I know we all understand is a major provider of energy through not just our area, but for all of America. And so, you know, I thank the president for making certain that we've got that done. Now, this area of carbon capture, this last year we had about 3 bills that were passed that we put some more restrictions. You mentioned that we're still learning. Well, carbon capture is about 50 years in, and you know there's some research that's been done, and carbon capture there are some that believe that it's not as harmful as others, but then there are some that we have in Livingston Parish that are adamantly opposed. So somewhere we have to have the balance right now to be producers, but yet not damage our lakes and our streams or our water sources, our aquifer. So we put some restrictions last year, and we're going to put some more this year. I mentioned to you before we went on, there's 8 or 9 bills that are going to be offered. Didn't want to really discuss those yet because they're just brand new, but this legislature is committed to make certain, and I think the governor is with this moratorium has said, we're going to make certain that we're very careful, whether it's landowners or an aquifer, that we're going to look at what we can do to restrict and to make certain that we can get this thing right. I'm concerned about where we are with water. I want to make certain that we don't damage our aquifer. We have a great source of water here in the Baton Rouge, Metro, Denham Springs, Walker. We're blessed. Some places in the country don't have that. We must protect our land. We must protect our aquifer. And we've got a lot of work to do on that. So we did offer some restrictions. We've also offered some opportunity to get some dollars back into our local community to make certain that the local communities, government, education, et cetera, get their fair share. So it's a very complex issue. We've got a lot of work to do, but I promise you, my nose is to the grindstone. My ear is to the public. I am listening and learning to make certain that what we must do to protect our public, we will get the job done. We'll find the right balance. And again, a lot of work on the federal front and on the local front.
As we close out, I want to give you a chance to speak directly to voters in the 5th District. What is the core message of your campaign? What do you want people to know about why you're running and what you'll do when you get there?
Yeah, you know, I've said this multiple times, but one thing that shaped me to get involved, and I've always wanted to be involved. Ever since I was a little boy, I loved politics, so it's nothing new to me. But in 2014, I was reading a magazine, and on the front of the magazine was a Louisiana guy, it's a national magazine. His name was Phil Robertson. You probably remember a show called Duck Dynasty. And they were really, oh my gosh, he was sharing his faith. He was about core principles of the Bible and family, and they were threatening to throw them off the air. And I was sitting at my desk one Sunday morning, and I just felt the Lord, I just felt the Lord's Spirit just move and say, you got to do more. And I don't have time this morning because your show just would be limited to that, but that moved me. And so I became then elected involved. I was elected in 2015 to try to stand. You ask why? Because I've got to do more as a fighter, as a father, as a family man. I am a father of 4 sons, 4 daughter-in-laws, 8 grandchildren, and I've got to fight just like you have to fight for what we believe is real American values. You know, the soul of America is really at risk right now in America. We see some of the things that we were brought up, we never thought would ever happen. We never thought we'd see boys try to be in girls' locker rooms. We never thought we'd have. But you know what? Somebody had to stand in the gap and fight for that. I was that guy. Some of us have to look up and say, we can't pay any more taxes than what we're doing. So you know what? As a legislator, I voted against, for 8 straight years, I voted against every tax increase that particular administration, they couldn't find a tax that they didn't want to support. So I stood in the gap and fought for what was right for the state of Louisiana and for our district. And I could continue to say that, and I'll close with this. We weren't satisfied with where we were educationally. We were 49 or 50 in every category. So now, as this past 10 years, I've served in education on the House side, and now I'm chairman of the State Senate Education Committee. We're not 50 anymore. We're not 49 anymore. In fact, after recovery from COVID, we were number 1 in that category. If you look at 4th grade literacy, we stand in the top 10 or better. Did you know what? We've now risen nationally to number 32, and we're not satisfied. We're going to make certain that our public schools like Livingston Parish, which are phenomenal schools, we're going to make certain that our children are educated and have the greatest opportunity to succeed as they move forward. I want the people of Livingston Parish in Louisiana to know, you want a fighter? You want somebody that's going to get the job done? You want somebody that won't throw grenades at an issue, but will throw solutions at an issue? Rick Edmonds is the guy. If you will send me to Congress, I'll be the hardest working person you'll ever elect, and I won't let you down. I'll love my family, and I'll stand for Christian values, and I promise you this, when I get to Washington, I will do everything I can to hold up the arms of Speaker Johnson, who's one of my greatest personal friends, to make certain that in the fight for America, we will do what President Trump said. We will fight, fight, fight. So give me that opportunity. And Melanie, I want to thank you today for allowing me the voice to be able to speak to your great audience. And I hope you'll give me this chance again. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.